If you are watching this video, congrats, because you have made it to what has been an absolutely shambolic season for West Ham United. The last game of the season in the Premier League to finally wrap up what has been, as we mentioned before, for so many times throughout many preview review shows this season, a really poor season. And this is the last preview we're going to do of the 2024-25 campaign. We're away to Ipswich, a team that's already relegated to the Championship and have been one of the worst teams statistically in the league this season. So how will West Ham fare in that final match with a few players leaving, the likes of Fabianski, Kufal, Cresswell, Danny Ings? You know, we know some players are leaving. So it'd be interesting to see how Potter approaches it as well. But if you do enjoy the preview, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel for more content. We've got lots of exciting new stylistic content for the transfer window coming up. So it's going to be a lot of stuff changing. But yeah, we're here to concentrate on Ipswich Town, the last game of the season. We want to finish on a positive. We spoke about the win against Man United and how we wanted to take that momentum forwards into the last two games. We've obviously taken another step back against Forest with that 2-1 defeat. And yeah, we now go into this Ipswich game where I don't think any West Ham fan really cares about the result at this point. They just want the season done. And anything else now is just going to be a bonus before the summer transfer window opens and we start to see some movement pretty early on, would be my prediction under Graham Potter, if he is in charge, which I expect he will be, and anticipate he will be given a little bit of backing in the transfer window. But focusing on this game, just to give you a tale of the tape for how poor both Ipswich and West Ham have been in the Premier League so far this season. Ipswich on 22 points compared to West Ham's 40, so quite a big discrepancy there. The goals scored, Ipswich only 35 compared to West Ham's 43. Goals conceded for Ipswich at 79, which is the second worst in the division. West Ham at 61. And Ipswich find themselves in 19th position with West Ham in 15th. And when we look at the expected data, it's not pretty reading for either side either. If anything, it's slightly worse for West Ham. But Ipswich, 27.18 expected points. West Ham, 40.36. Ipswich just shy of 40 XG. West Ham just shy of 50. Ipswich are on expected goals conceded of 82.77, which is an incredible amount. West Ham on 67.19, which is also very high. And the expected positions of both respective clubs. Ipswich should be one place higher in 18th when they compare to their baseline of 19th. And West Ham should be a couple of positions lower than we currently find ourselves in 15th. And we should just be above the bottom three of the Premier League. So, yeah, it's just been an awful, awful season. And I'm so glad that we don't have to preview this again this season and we can go into the new Premier League campaign next year with a fresh set of eyes and a fresh, level of optimism for what could be another good season at West Ham. But there's so much work to do. And before we even get into that, we've obviously got this small hurdle of Ipswich in the way before we can close the curtains. And as I mentioned, has been such a poor season for West Ham under both Julian Lopetegui in the first half of the season and Graham Potter as well in the second half. Hasn't really got going for him and it hasn't been that much better in way of performances, in way of results, in everything, man management, substitutions, tactical changes. That we haven't really seen much under Graham Potter so far. We didn't really see much under Lopetegui either. I think it's clear for both how both managers want to play, but the execution of that plan hasn't been great. And we saw that, with Forest and the mistake Areola made and the way that encapsulated how Graham Potter wants to play at West Ham and the blueprint he wants to leave. But the players themselves are not ready to play that way and they haven't adapted to how Graham Potter wants to play. And it was the same with Lopetegui. We went from such a polar opposite with David Moyes' style of play to Julian Lopetegui was completely gung-ho, no real structure behind it, ultra press at times. And now we're trying to go a bit more conservative, a bit more controlled, passive, patient. And we haven't seen the rewards of that so far with the players that we've got and the way we've set up in games. And yeah, this game's going to be interesting against Ipswich. When we look at their season and how they've played so far and where that kind of puts them, you can see here they're the third worst offensive record. They have the third worst offensive record, in the Premier League so far with 35 goals scored. They have the third worst expected defensive record as well, so it matches there. They have the second weakest defensive record in the Premier League with 79 goals conceded, which is, an incredible margin. Only Southampton have a worse record. They're ranked 18th for expected points, as we already mentioned. They're averaging just under a goal per game. They're averaging just over 2 goals conceded per game. And they average just over 41% possession in the Premier League throughout this Premier League campaign so far. So how are West Ham going to set up in this game? What is Graham Potter going to do? Because the frustrations of that Forest game were clear from the fans. And it was a really frustrating way to, again, try and build on the momentum of an excellent win at Old Trafford. We haven't won there in the Premier League since 2007. Take that momentum with you. He named the same starting 11. It didn't work. It was too passive against that Forest team, and we didn't have enough creativity to break them down when they took the lead early on. And that was kind of the recurring theme. So when we look at a team like Ipswich, again, they have a very set way of playing. It hasn't worked for them this season. I don't think they've had the quality to play that way. And I think they've left themselves a little bit too exposed at times. And when we look at the reverse fixture, when we beat them 4-1 at the London Stadium, I would say that's probably the only game I can remember this season that we really deserved to win and really played well. And that was under Lopetegui. And that, in my mind, there may be a couple of others that you guys can let me know about in the comments. But when I'm thinking about that in my mind, that was the game. That was the only game where I was like, yeah, we controlled that. We bossed that. We played really, really well. We deserved to win. And we came away feeling positive. Other than that, I can't really remember many. There's been a few wins here and there where we've played well. Obviously winning at the Emirates is massive. Old Trafford, again, huge, despite Man United's poor league form. Beating the likes of Crystal Palace away, Newcastle away, Man United at home as well. We've had some good results along the way, but the performances haven't always matched that. And I would say, yeah, this Ipswich reverse fixture was the only one where I feel like we dominated from pretty much start to finish, other than a stupid goal that we conceded. And yeah, other than that, we played really, really well. So how does Graham Potter approach this? I want to see a more attacking approach from Graham Potter. I want us to feel like we're in control. We should be going to Portman Road and trying to take control of this game against an Ipswich team that are already down. There's going to be players obviously playing for themselves in this moment where they're trying to get a few eyeballs on them to potentially move away from Ipswich and stay in the Premier League or in one of the big top 5 European clubs, league, sorry. Players like Liam Delap, who's being linked with West Ham, these types of players still have a point to prove. And to be honest, so do the West Ham players. They're not only fighting for their place in the West Ham team, they're fighting to stay at the club under Graham Potter, because he's going to be trying to make a lot of changes at this football club. Make no mistake about that. He will put this down to this opening period, a lack of activity, which we didn't see in January to bring in any recruitment, a lack of personnel to play how he wants to play, and also a lack of time. Now, we've said we're treating this as a pre-season for Graham Potter. Do I think it's been a good pre-season? Absolutely not. It's been terrible. We haven't seen a clear way of playing. I mean, we've seen glimpses of it, but again, the players aren't really on the same page. We've seen us change from a back 3 to a back 4 to a different type of back 3 to a Kudus Bowen strike force to a Fulkirk. Like, we've just seen so many variations. And fine, if Graham Potter wants to test it, so be it. But I think what we've seen with Graham Potter is if we've won a football match, he's stuck with the same 11 and the same game plan, regardless of the opposition. We saw it with Arsenal when we played Kudus and Bowen in that pivot up front, and we played very passive. We then had the same lineup at home to Leicester. Yes, we won that game, so I'm not complaining, but it's the way we approached it was very passive, considering the opposition. We were lucky that just Leicester was so poor that day that it just allowed us to control it anyway. But again, it happened at Old Trafford. We played a certain way. It works in those types of games. You're then playing a completely different opposition in Nottingham Forest at home. I didn't see enough. It's the same starting 11. Again, you may argue that you don't change a winning team, but for me, it's circumstance. The way you're setting up, the way you're playing has to differ based on that opponent. And there's going to be a few things you need to tweak in your lineup. And we haven't seen that. And I think the way we introduced our substitutes as well, 4 substitutions last game against Forest all in one go. It just, as I said it on the review show, it just screamed a little bit more panicky to me than strategic. So I want to see Graham Potter get it right from the start. But this is what I would like to see. If I had it my way, I would start with this starting 11. I'd have Fabianski back in goal. I think he deserves that. I think he should have played in the last game at the London Stadium. I'd have a back 3 of Todibo, Kilman and Cresswell. Again, if he wants to play a back 3 Potter, which I think he does, and I don't think he can really play in a back 4, this is the best back 3 blend that we have. I would then bring back Emerson in to left wing back and move Wan-Bissaka over to the right. I'd have Paqueta and Souček as the double pivot there. We need Paqueta's creativity from deep. We need Souček to be I would say, the heart of the midfield. And then I would have Kudus and Bowen bouncing off Fulkirk. And that, to me, is a good blueprint for how we should move forward under Graham Potter. Again, we're going to have to recruit the right players to play this way, but I don't want to see a midfield 3 of Ward-Prowse, Guido, Souček. Like, it just doesn't, it's not forward thinking at all. That is not the long term. Guido's going to be moving on anyway. And I want to see Souček drop a little bit deeper. I know he's been scoring some goals and playing really well in the advanced position, but in the last 2 games, effectively, especially against Man United, he was playing as a second like shadow striker between Kudus and Bowen. Why would you not just use Fulkrug for that? So again, I still want Souček to play because he's been the best of those midfielders that I mentioned. He deserves to play in there over Ward-Prowse, over Soler, over Guido, over Alvarez. But I want to see Paqueta in there because we saw it against Forest. He was excellent, other than some stupid challenges he made. And you need that type of player in midfield to create things and to make things happen, especially in a team that is so deprived of creativity. But as for Ipswich, I mean, they just need to make sure that they bounce back again next season. They did an excellent job getting back-to-back promotions into the Premier League. I think it was always a tough ask for them to stay in the Premier League. I think they made some decent signings, to be honest, and I think they were probably my outside chance to stay up out of the 3. I just don't think it happened for them. I think it was just a task too big. But again, I anticipate if they keep a good core group of players at that football club, they have a good enough coach to bounce back if he does stay there as coach. But yeah, let me know down below in the comment section, what's your predictions for this game? How would you like to see us approach it and line up? Because there's a few different ways we could do it. And yeah, that's what I would do. In terms of a prediction for a score, it's really hard to call. I'd probably say an entertaining 2-2 draw if I was to guess. But I don't think it's going to be. I don't think we're going to control the game at all. I think Ipswich are going to be up for it, regardless of whether they're up or down. And yeah, just want this season to be done so we can look ahead to the transfer window in a few weeks' time. But yeah, I don't want to go into too many detailed. There's no point going through the tactical preview as we normally do, just because of it's the season's done. And yeah, we can start getting excited ahead of the summer transfer window very shortly. But yeah, before we do, let me know in the comments down below, what are your score predictions for the game? If you enjoyed the video, please do leave a like, subscribe to the channel for more content. As I mentioned, we've got some really exciting stuff planned for the summer. So definitely hit subscribe if you haven't already, as that massively helps us out. Turn on notifications so you don't miss our videos. And yeah, excited to end the season, hopefully end it with 3 points and go to Portman Road, come away from Portman Road, should I say, happy and going into the summer transfer window with a bit of more positivity. But yeah, that's going to be all today. Thank you for watching, and come on, you Irons.